Minors should not be black belts in martial arts. Let's talk about it. Everybody, my name is Sensei Anthony. Thank you for joining us, the Real Karate podcast. And I'm just going to jump into probably the most controversial take that I have. Now, I personally believe that a black belt goes beyond skills. I believe it goes beyond skill sets. I think there has to be a component of morality, of understanding, of discernment, of recognizing what amount of violence is required. And I don't think kids, for the most part, have that. And before you jump in there and start talking about the prodigy that you know or the prodigy kid, I started martial arts when I was 3 years old. I didn't get my black belt until I was 19, okay? So after a lifetime of training, I still had to wait a year beyond the minimum. And I will not back down from that. You should be at least 18. Think about getting your driver's license, okay? If you were born in Gen X or before, you probably learned when you were 15 driving around the parking lot with your parents. And for those of us who learned how to drive a car with a manual stick, you know what I'm talking about. Quite the experience, right? But the law says you can't drive on the streets by yourself until you're 16. It might have changed by now, but it was 16 when I was a kid, okay? Now, you cannot drink alcohol until you're 21 in this country. And as a lot of you know, some of you guys were experimenting and drinking before that. I'm not saying it's right, but you know what you did, and you know that there was a minimum standard. I have different classes for my youth program than I do for my adult program, which I consider 13 and up, because you have to have a basic understanding of the nature of violence, and a lot of times, kids don't, especially in a world where people seem to be able to tell the difference between real life and fantasy less and less. Let me give you an example. I had a kid tell me that a schoolmate stood and did the Karate Kid crane stands in the middle of a fight. This kid did not know karate. This kid did not even consider how bad an idea that is to do in real life. No karate training, saw something in a movie and thought they would try it. That's what I mean. Kids lack the ability to discern oftentimes between what's real and what's not, and what is prudent and what is not. For example, if a little kid gets into an altercation with another kid throws a punch, I want them to block, punch, front snap kick, whatever is necessary until that person is no longer a threat. What I don't want them to do is block and hit that other kid in the throat with a tiger's mouth, because that's a response that is far more serious than the offending attack, right? But for adults don't often fight. They're assaulted. They find themselves the victims of criminal assault, and that requires those type of responses. But I don't think most kids have the emotional intelligence to tell the difference. Again, I want to hear about your amazing such and such. That's an exception to the rule that proves that the rule is there for a reason. I do not believe in giving kids black belts, because the concept of what a black belt means has shifted in modern days, but I believe that it should remain a significant mark of achievement. And remember, for those of you who don't know, I can't even say remember, the first degree black belt is called a shodan. What that means in essence is first step. It doesn't even mean mastery in most traditional martial arts. Now, if you take an art like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where you're 7, 8, 9, 10 years into your training, yes, you can consider yourself an expert at that point. For most arts, traditional arts, your first degree black belt means you've completed the curriculum, you're able to execute it in a competent way, and that you can defend yourself reasonably against someone who is bigger and stronger than you. That's it. It doesn't mean you're magic. It doesn't mean you are able to defeat everybody. It doesn't mean any of that. I heard someone say once, and my father was talking about this with me yesterday actually, White belt through brown belt, you learn how. As a black belt, you learn why. And that is a very different path. And I don't think that I know that most kids are incapable of that jump in logic and in understanding. Giving black belts to kids is why most traditional martial arts are no longer respected. I'll say it again for the people in the back. Giving black belts to children, to minors, is why most traditional martial arts are no longer respected. In the good old days, 50s, 60s, 70s, bleeding into the 80s a little bit, when you fought a black belt, when you earned a black belt, and I say earned, you were able to defend yourself at a high level. Period. There was no watering down of the program en masse. There was no doing this that more people want to join just because en masse. You had a bunch of people who wanted to learn to defend themselves, and through that self-defense training, they got discipline, they got confidence, they became physically healthier, mentally healthier. That's what happened. Let me ask you this. How much would you respect your local university if 7-year-olds could graduate from there? Yeah, sit in that for a second. How much would you respect a high school even if 7-year-olds were graduating from high school, getting a diploma from that school? Let me help you. You wouldn't. And again, I don't want to hear your anecdote about the kid geniuses who earn their PhDs at 20 or 17 or anything like that. That is a 1 out of 100 million type situation, okay? How much would you respect your job if it could be competently done by a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old? That's what I thought. You wouldn't. But for the sake of money, people are willing to give kids black belts just because their kids attended consistently. They might not be able to fight. They might not be that strong. They might not be that agile. They might not have had any significant changes in their anything. But because they keep coming, people are awarding them black belts. Not in my academy. Never going to happen. The reason that kids are getting softer and softer is because people allow them to. I fully expect that kids won't be as strong as other children and other generations who were raised on farms, who had to do physical hard work every day. I understand that that's not going to happen. The world is too far past that in terms of the need for that kind of physicality. But when they go into a dojo, they should be able to do push-ups, sit-ups, jump rope, crunches, squats, because that should be a part of the curriculum. If not those things in particular, something that strengthens the body, strengthens the mind. I've said many times that the best way to test a kid's mental strength is to see how they behave when they're physically tired. If they close their eyes, grit their teeth, and keep going, they're on the right path. If they start complaining about how much their arms are tired or their legs are tired, they need more work. Not a knock against kids. I was born and raised in this thing. Not everybody was. No problem. I totally understand that. I totally believe in it. So it's not like I don't understand the problem. I'm telling you that I won't be a part of it. I will not award a child a black belt. We have 2 separate programs, and when adults start asking me when their kids are going to be promoted, I explain to them how we do things here, and it is not the traditional way. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, any Ivy League school, any major institution, any major endeavor has never made its program easier so that more people do it. That's how they weed out the weak. That's how they find the strong, making it hard and letting people live up to that standard. So if you're thinking that your kid is going to be a black belt because they started at 7, nope, they'll start again as a beginner in the adult program when their time comes. The training will be much harder. They'll be expected to do and know a lot more. And that's it. I hope that helps. Thank you guys very much for listening. If you like what you heard, please hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that little notification bell. I'll be doing podcasts at least twice a week. If you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, if you have any recommendations, I'd love to hear them. So please include. Until then, please be kind to yourselves and each other. Have a great day.